Hi, my name is Ellie Rieks, and today I will be discussing functional communication training. Functional communication training is when you take a problem or target behavior and replace it with a more functional and appropriate behavior. Examples of target behaviors would be throwing things, hitting, biting yourself, removing your clothing, kicking, and screaming. These target behaviors are highly prevalent in children and adults with autism spectrum disorders. Frequency and severity are the main concerns with these behaviors. There are 3 steps when assessing someone with an interfering behavior. The first, assess the function of the challenging behavior to be targeted. Second, select an appropriate alternative behavior. And third, teach the alternative and fade out prompts to fit the current environment. In many cases, the reason for these problem behaviors is to get attention. Once you figure out why the person is trying to get your attention, you can think of different ways to replace the behavior. There are a few options including gestures, such as pointing or raising a hand, words or phrases, and assistive technology for those who cannot speak. Although many individuals have seen a great success from this approach, something is still lacking. Functional communication training is very individualized, which makes it very challenging for speech-language pathologists, teachers, and parents. Every person on the spectrum is different with different needs, and it's difficult to tailor an approach to each person. Not only is functional communication training individualized, it doesn't always work for everyone. In many cases, the functional behavior is lost. This mainly has to do with the consistency of the environment. All of the research I've come across, the numbers have been extremely low. The groups being studied are very, very small, whereas the population with ASDs is growing rapidly. In order to really understand if this approach is working, there needs to be more research and evidence to support it. They need to study hundreds of people, not 5. Many of those that have been a part of the research have gotten better in controlling their problem behaviors and using a more appropriate gesture or words to get what they want. However, a lot of the time they return back to their pre-treatment behaviors shortly after learning the new behavior. Most of the time, the person with ASD goes back to the problem behavior because those around them are not following through with the approach or do not know anything about the approach. For example, from our textbook, a lady at a nursing home would scream and remove her clothing. Her functional behavior was to raise her hand when she wanted attention from the nurses. She was doing really well, but after 3 weeks began screaming and removing her clothing again. Through interviews with the nursing home staff, researchers found out that although all of the nurses agreed to responding to her hand raise, they would become very busy and not get to her when she raised her hand. They even found her constant hand raising to be annoying. Unfortunately, this strategy was not successful, and they continued to view her requests for attention as problematic. This is a major issue because this can be confusing and not fair to the person with ASD. They worked hard to use a new and more effective way of getting someone's attention, and within weeks lost it. They need consistency in order for this approach to work, and sometimes keeping consistency is a difficult thing to do. In her case, it could have been a little easier considering her environment was the nursing home and that's where she stayed all the time. But for those that are constantly changing environments, this is very hard because once they get it down at home, they might have to go to school or somewhere else and they lose it. Although there are many advantages to functional communication training, I do not support it right now. There simply is not enough research to back up the approach. Every case study I found only had about 1 to 5 people studied. The autism spectrum is hastily growing and we need so much more research done. I also don't like how inconsistent this approach is across different environments, and the functional behavior is so easily lost across the environments, which makes it very hard for the individual with an ASD to stay motivated. Once their motivation is lost, it takes a lot of work to get that back. I hope to see more research done in the near future for functional communication training because it's a great idea and it has the potential to be very successful. Thank you.